I never imagined that a single giggle could ignite a chain of events that would turn my entire life upside down. My name is Mark, I'm 38, and for years I thought I knew my wife Allison inside out. We had a seemingly normal marriage, or so I believed. 14 years together, 2 kids, and a house in the suburbs that looked perfect on Instagram. But appearances, as I learned that day, could be deadly misleading. It all started on a mundane Tuesday. I had just returned from a late meeting at the office, exhausted and barely in the mood for anything. Allison, as usual, was waiting by the kitchen counter with that smile I had once found charming but had, over time, started to suspect carried a different kind of mischief. That day she was unusually chipper, almost giddy. I didn't think much of it, chalking it up to her small victories at work or maybe an early morning coffee too many. As I walked past the living room to drop my briefcase, I noticed a small stack of delivery receipts scattered on the coffee table. My curiosity piqued. I asked casually, "What's all this?" "Oh, just packages from work," she replied, her voice light and airy, almost too light. I nodded, not giving it much thought. But then I noticed something odd, a delivery receipt addressed not to our home, but to a local boutique, a place I had never ordered from. It was a minor thing, nothing that would usually alarm me, but the way Allison's eyes flicked up and then away, it was the slightest movement, almost imperceptible, set off an instinct I couldn't ignore. Later that evening, I decided to go through her work emails on her laptop. It wasn't something I normally did, but the unease gnawed at me. That's when I saw it. The thread of messages, the subtle jokes, the flirtatious banter, the little giggles typed out in response to every comment. Allison wasn't just being friendly. She was toying with someone else. And the person she was exchanging these texts with was someone she knew at the delivery company, someone who, apparently, found her antics equally amusing. I felt a strange mix of anger and disbelief. How could she be so careless? How could she openly flirt while acting as if everything at home was perfectly normal? I stared at the screen, rereading the messages, trying to convince myself that maybe I was overreacting. But every giggle, every playful comment, was like a small knife twisting deeper into my chest. The next day, I confronted her indirectly. I mentioned casually, "Funny how quickly some packages get delivered these days, huh?" I watched her closely, noting the way her hand trembled slightly as she sipped her coffee. She laughed nervously, brushing it off as though I had said nothing of importance. That was the moment I realized she thought she could get away with it. And that was the moment I decided she wouldn't. For the next week, I observed her patterns. Every morning, every little smile, every message she thought I wouldn't see, I cataloged them all in my mind. The giddiness, the tiny sparkle in her eyes when she received texts during work hours, the careless giggle at the delivery office, it was all proof of her betrayal. Then came the perfect moment. I knew she had a big client delivery that afternoon. I feigned being tied up at work and told her I wouldn't be home until late evening. The second she left, I slipped into my office and began drafting a letter, my revenge letter. Not a letter of rage, not an angry outburst, but a cold, calculated reminder of what she had risked and what she had now lost. I wrote slowly, choosing each word carefully, measuring the weight it would carry. "Allison, I saw everything. The giggles, the texts, the way you thought no one noticed your excitement over trivial messages and deliveries. You laughed while our life, our vows, and the trust we built over 14 years were quietly unraveling in your hands. You think a little harmless flirting at work is inconsequential, but let me assure you it's not. Every joke you typed, every smile you flashed at another man, chipped away at something far greater than your amusement. Do you remember the promises we made? To respect, honor, and protect each other? You laughed at them in silence while pretending to uphold them in public. The person you were pretending to be at work, the cheerful, innocent wife, doesn't exist when it comes to true loyalty. You risked everything for a fleeting thrill, and that's your choice. But now you must face the consequences." I paused and reread it. My hands were steady, my mind sharp. This was not about hurting her for the sake of revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity, about teaching a lesson that no words could undo if ignored. By the time she returned home, the letter was placed neatly on the kitchen counter, sealed, addressed in my handwriting. I waited silently in the living room, observing her from a distance. The moment she picked it up, I could see the confusion cross her face. She didn't open it immediately. Her fingers hovered over the flap, her breath quickened, and for the first time, I saw that spark of invincibility falter. The playful glint in her eyes that had survived all my previous attempts to hold her accountable wavered. Then she read. Slowly at first, then faster, until the entire content sank in. I watched as the giggle, the one she had relied on to charm her colleagues and cover her traces, dried up. Her lips parted, eyes widened, and a deep, unsteady breath escaped her. Tears began to form, but it wasn't the dramatic, performative kind she had used so many times before. This was real, raw, undeniable. The realization hit her like a thunderclap. She had gambled with her marriage and she had lost. And as she stood there, letter in hand, I finally allowed myself a moment to feel what I had been holding back for weeks: pride. Not the pride of vengeance, but the quiet satisfaction of finally being seen, finally respected, finally acknowledged for the boundaries I had silently protected for so long. Her cries weren't screams of defiance, they were the sound of reckoning. And in that sound, I found the affirmation that my patience, my vigilance, and my unspoken understanding of the limits of loyalty had finally been recognized.